Hello everyone, welcome to this tutorial where we'll divide into the world of HIRARC, a crucial process in ensuring workplace safety. I am Dr Zuritah A.Kadir and I'll be your guide through the step-by-step the journey of conducting hazard identification, risk assessment and risk control. So let's get started. So as for learning outcomes, at the end of this class, you should be able to evaluate and determine hazard and risk at the workplace. Second, you will be able to evaluate hazard of assigned place based on suitable methodology and technology in accordance to HIRARC guidelines and legislation. And the third one, to formulate work activities, identify hazard, action plan, and implement HIRARC accordance to the value of OSH. So at the end of this class, there is a group project as an assessment. Student might be able to submit the evidence that author link group activities. In recent years, hazard identification, risk assessment, risk control has become fundamental to the practice of planning, management, and the operation of a business. As a basis of risk management, the organization that has carried out risk assessment at the workplace have noted numerous changes in the work clean practice. Those who are already carried out risk assessment in their work are reportedly have reported positive changes in their working experiments. They recognize substandard act and working condition as they develop and take necessary corrective action. Legislation requires that this process should be systematic and can be recorded so that the result and reliable and the analysis are completed. The risk assessment process should be continuous and should not be regarded as one-off exercise, as an approach of preventive measure, as a way of enforcing the law of occupational safety and health, OSH. It is seen that HIRARC become very important. With HIRARC, one will be able to identify hazard, analyze the hazard, and assess the hazard, then apply the control measure. Is one of the general duties prescribed under OSHA 1994. It shall be the duty of every employer, every self-employed person to ensure so far as practicable the safety, health and welfare at work of all his of all his employees and other persons. Nevertheless, the purpose of HIRARCs are as follows. First is to identify all the factors that may cause harm to the employees and others, which means the hazards. Second, to consider what the chances that harm actually befalling everyone in the circumstances of particular case and the possible severity that could come for it, the risk. And then lastly, to enable employees to plan, introduce, and monitor the preventive measure to ensure the risks are adequately controlled at all times. So, hazard is actually a source of harm of obvious health effect. Hazard can be various forms such as chemical, machinery, environmental factors. Essentially, a hazard is anything that has the potential to cause harm. So let's look at some example of hazard. This could include the chemical substances that is toxic, piece of equipment with moving parts, or even slippery floor. Hazard are the inherent characteristics or condition that pose a threat. So now let's shift our focus to risk. Risk is the likelihood that particular hazard will cause harm in given situation. It's a measure of probability and severity of adverse effect resulting from the exposure to a hazard. So then let's focus on the likelihood. Likelihood is an event likely to occur within a specific period or in specific circumstances. Meanwhile, severity is the outcome from an event, such as severity of injury or health of people, damage to property, or insult to environment, or any combination of any of these events. The relationship between hazard and risk can be summarized in the risk equation. Risk equals to hazard times severity. While hazard exists independently, it's the severity to the hazard that determines the level of risk. To illustrate, let's consider a specific example. If a hazardous shark is present in an ocean, the risk is swimming in the ocean with the shark, as you can see in this picture. In this picture, it shows that the shark itself is actually the hazard, and when people swim in the ocean with the shark, that poses the risk that can cause harm. So now let's focus on step-by-step journey of conducting hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control. HIRARC stands for the Hazard Identification, Risk Assessment, and Risk Control. It's a systematic approach to identify potential hazard in the workplace, evaluating the associated risks, and implementing control measures to mitigate those risks. So process of HIRARC requires 4 simple steps. First is you have to classify work activities, and then you have to identify the hazard. Third step, you need to conduct risk assessment. You need to choose the likelihood, and then you need to choose the severity of hazard. Then later you have to decide if the risk is tolerable and apply control measure by using hierarchy of control. So Department of Occupational Safety and Health Malaysia produced a guidelines on how to conduct HIRARC. This guidelines is supposed to provide a guidance on methodology of conducting HIRARC. It should be simple enough to be used and by small and medium industry and should be versatile enough to be used by all in various economic sector, either in the manufacturing sector, construction, or any other economic sector. The methodology of HIRARC proposed in this guideline is intended for the assessment of the physical hazard. Those who intend to assess health hazard in their workplace should make use of other risk assessment guidelines designed specifically for such purposes. So basically, you can obtain the guidelines in the DOSH website. This is HIRARC form frequently used by practitioners. It consists of first part, information details, second, hazard identification, third, risk analysis, and the fourth one, risk control. Step 1, you need to classify the work activity. Classify work activities in accordance with their similarity, such as geographical or physical areas within outside premises, stages in the production, service processes, not too big, example, building a car, not too small, for example, fixing a nut, or lastly, define the tasks, example, loading, packing, mixing, fixing. Second step, you have to identify the hazard. The purpose of hazard identification is to highlight the critical operation of the task, that is, those tasks posing as well as highlighting those hazards pertaining to certain equipment due to energy sources, working condition, or activities performed. Hazard can be divided into 3 main groups: health hazard, safety hazard, and environmental hazard. You can refer to the guidelines, HIRARC guidelines, to get example of the hazard. So step 3, you have to conduct risk analysis. The first risk analysis is you need to identify the likelihood assessment. As mentioned before, likelihood is an event likely to occur within the specific period or in specific circumstances. It can be divided into 5 rating, 1 until 5, and then the description as you see in here, and then the likelihood from most likely into inconceivable. Then you have to decide the severity. Severity is outcome for an event such as severity of injury or health or people, damage to the property or insult to environment, or any combination of this caused by the event. Similar likelihood rating 1 to 5 from negligible to catastrophic. The details as shown here. After that, you have to conduct risk analysis. Risk can be calculating using simple mathematical equation. Risk equals to likelihood times severity. So for example, if you already calculate your risk, then you have to group it into 3 levels. First is low, second is medium, third is high. Or if you get the value of 1 until 4, it belongs to low level. And then if the value is 5 to 14, it belongs to medium level, and above 15 is considered as high risk level. And then after that, you have to propose the risk control. Control is elimination or inactivation of hazard or in such manner that a hazard does not pose a risk to workers who have to enter an area or work on equipment in the course of schedules, as it should be controlled at the source where the problem is created. So usually we will use hierarchy of control. We start with eliminations and then substitution, engineering control, administrative control, and lastly PPE. So the top hierarchy is the most preferred control. So how we want to select a suitable control? We must evaluate and select short and long-term controls, implementing long-term control when reasonably practicable, and then we can implement short-term measures to protect workers until permanent control can be put in place. So type of control, the first type of control is at the source of hazard. First is elimination. Uh, The description is getting rid of the hazardous job, tools, process, machine, or substances. For example, a salvage firm might decide to stop buying and cutting up scrap bulk fuel tanks due to explosion hazard. For substitution, doing the same work with a less hazardous way is possible. For example, you replace the hazardous chemical with the less hazardous one. Then we have engineering control. We could redesign, we could put isolation, we could put automation, we can do a barriers, we can do absorption, and then we can do dilution in the engineering control. And then for administrative controls, there are few where we can put control in place. First is safe work procedure, supervision and training, housekeeping and repair maintenance program, job rotation, and hygiene. So lastly, PPE equipment and clothing is used when other control measures are not feasible and where additional protection is needed. Workers must be trained to use and maintain equipment properly. Both employers and workers must understand the limitation of the PPE. The employer is expected to require workers to use their equipment whenever it's needed, and care must be taken to ensure that the PPE working properly. So now let's do example of HIRARC. Imagine you are the safety officer in the office responsible for assessing and managing workplace hazard. Let's break down a scenario to understand this concept of risk, likelihood, and severity. Your first task is to identify potential hazard in activities where you have to move the box from point A to point B in the office. You notice an uneven flooring near the coffee station, cluster walkway, and loose cable and outdated electrical system. These are the hazards we'll be addressing. First, you have to classify the work activities. Let's break down the work activities into two: lifting the box, carrying the box. Then you identify the hazard for each activity. Let's focus on first activity, lifting the box. You'll notice there is potential of hazard, manual handling, heavy lifting the box, which can cause musculoskeletal injuries. And the second hazard you found is repetitive movement, which can cause the strain to the body. So there are two hazards identified. First is heavy box, and then the second one is awkward posture. Then the next step, you have to conduct risk analysis. You determine the likelihood, and then you determine the severity. Then later, you calculate the risk for risk rating. As you can see here, the likelihood is 3 for manual handling and heavy lifting. Severity is 2. So 3 times 2 equals to 6. For manual handling awkward posture, say 3 times 2 equals to 6. Then you refer to risk metric table. 3 times 2 equals to 6. It falls under medium risk. So you have to propose risk control. This is an example how you can propose a risk control. You need to start with elimination from the top of the hierarchy of control. Start with elimination, not applicable in this case. Substitution is also not applicable in this case. For engineering control, we can use mechanical aids such as dollies or part for heavy items. And then we can propose administration. We can provide manual handling training for all employees, involve safe working procedure, and ensure an adequate number of personnel for lifting. Lastly, we can propose PPE, back support, hand glove, and safety shoes. So there you have it, the first step of HIRARC. So let's do a recap. The process of HIRARC only requires four simple steps. First, classify the work activities. Second, identify the hazard. Third, conduct risk assessment. You need to choose likelihood and severity, and then refer to the risk matrix uh, to put your risk into three levels: high, medium, and low. And then based on that, you need to decide if risk is tolerable and apply control measure if necessary. It's simple as that. And as I mentioned in earlier video, there's assessment for this video. So the student need to conduct project group, which consists of 40% of total marks. Objective of the project group is to systematically identify, assess, and control workplace hazard, ensuring a safe and healthy environment for a specific occasional working activities. So at the end of the project group, student must submit a report which consists of 25% of 40s present and also have the conduct presentation, which consists of 10%, and then there will be a peer assessment from your group member, which consists of 5%. Details of the assessment in the next video. So what you should do, you need to form a group, 5 members, and appoint a leader. Each of group need to identify questionnaire work activities at the workplace, and then later need to perform HIRARC by using HIRARC form. So what you should do, first you have to identify existing or potential hazard in each chosen work activity. And then you have to assess the risk of each identified hazard. Third, you have to recommend control measure for each identified hazard by considering the consequences of the hierarchy of control. Fourth, you have to record related processes or activities into the attached form. Fifth, you have everyone need to be actively participating in the project group. Remember, there is a mark for peer assessment. Each group is required to present the outcome of the hierarchy in the form of PowerPoints, and then each group member should participate during presentation. So, at lastly, students need to submit a final report through the system. So if you have any further question, don't forget to email me at zuritah@uthm.edu.my, or students can write on stream in the auto system UTHM. So thank you for watching.